Hey everybody, and welcome to the next edition of the Soccer Fitness Goals video blog. It's been another busy week this week, and one of the interesting things that happened was that I got a letter, you can see it here, addressed to the United Nations, and it's written by Eva Votsa, who is a 9-year-old girl soccer player who's trained with us for the past few years. And I'll tell you the context behind that. Why do I have a letter addressed to the United Nations? It's because for the longest time, whenever we run training programs on the field and athletes have to do planks or push-ups or other exercises where they have to put their arms and their hands on the ground on the turf, it tends to bother them. The turf may irritate them, or you know, they don't like the way it feels to put their hands and their arms on the ground, so they'll complain. And my sarcastic joke that I always make when I hear this is I tell them that, you know, I can't help you, but you can write a letter of complaint to the United Nations, and if you give me the letter, I'll mail it for you. And it's been over 10 years I've been saying this and making this joke, and never actually received a letter until this week from Eva Votsa. So what we'll do is we'll actually post a picture of the letter if you want to have a look at it and have a good laugh. So another reason why this week was really busy is that it was another week of Champions League soccer. And, you know, for me, in my opinion, the Champions League is the most exciting soccer that's on TV right now. I say right now because the most exciting soccer, in my opinion, is the Copa America. But that's a topic for another blog. Today, we're going to discuss the Champions League game that happened this week between Juventus and Porto. So this was an interesting game, and definitely Juventus would have been favored to win it. They're overall probably the stronger of the two teams. But as the game started, Porto was very competitive, even though they did line up and start the game a bit more defensively. It was definitely a competitive game. All of that changed, unfortunately, for Porto starting at the 27th minute, and there was a period of time from the 27th to the 29th minute where their left back, Alex Telles, he made two reckless challenges consecutively in that 2-minute period. The first one was a slide tackle, a late slide tackle on Quadrato, the Juventus right-sided midfielder, and he was booked for that. He was given a yellow card, and literally less than 2 minutes later, he made a similar reckless late diving tackle into Lichtensteiner, the Juventus right fullback. And again, unfortunately, he was also booked for that, which meant that he got a red card. And for Porto, even though they had been competitive up to that point, losing a man and losing a key starting player, which meant that they had to make a few other changes and withdraw an attacker from the game, it really kind of eliminated the chance for them to win the game for sure, and even to get a good result, to get a draw out of it. Juventus didn't end up scoring their goals to win the game until later in the second half, but really in terms of the competitiveness of the game, it was pretty much over once Telles got that red card. So why are we talking about the red card? It goes to the topic of defending, and specifically the topic of the principles of defending that tie into principles of play. And depending on where you've learned the game or where you've studied coaching, you might see principles of play or principles of defending that are named or termed in different ways. But one of them that always comes up, which applies to this case and to the fouls that happen in this game, is the principle of control or restraint or discipline. And you know, we'll put up the page from the Canadian Soccer Association's Coach Education Manual, which in the CSA they call it control and restraint. So we'll have a look at the clips of both of Telles's fouls. What you'll see when you look at them is, number one, neither of them occurred when Juventus had the ball in a really threatening position. They weren't too close to the goal. You know, they were out on the wing. there's a chance that either Quadrato or Lichtsteiner, if they had maintained possession, might have been able to get down the wing and cross the ball. But it certainly wasn't a really threatening position for Juventus. And in those cases, in those instances where defenders or any other player who's applying pressure to the ball, doesn't have to be a defender, but any player applying pressure to the ball in a non-threatening situation, then really control and restraint, control of your body as you're approaching to apply pressure, is really important. Of course, number one, to avoid fouls and cards, but also it doesn't do you any good just to lunge in and dive in, even if you don't win the ball or hit the man, because most likely a good attacking player, a smart attacking player, if you don't show restraint, will just go around you. And I think especially for younger players, and even some younger coaches that are new to the game and new to teaching defending, it's an important point to consider that maybe players who are learning about defending should stop always trying to think only about winning the ball. I think if we look at the clips of both of Telles's tackles, he definitely didn't have enough restraint, and it doesn't look like he was thinking about anything other than just winning the ball. And maybe the shift in mindset in terms of what defenders should be thinking about as they're approaching and applying pressure is really to get in the way of the opposing player. Keeping in mind that it's not a 1v1 competition, it's a team competition, and when you're defending as a team. So if you do your job as a pressuring player, get in the way of the opposing player that has the ball. Don't just think about winning it, but think about slowing that player down, preventing that player from going forward, allowing time for your covering defenders to get into place. Then in the end, you'll have a much greater chance of actually winning the ball. And interestingly enough, some of the higher levels that I worked at and hearing the coaches talk about defending, a lot of times they would a common theme that would come up would be that coaches would say things like, if everybody on the defending team gets themselves in the right position, then the opponents will literally just end up giving you the ball. So it requires a lot of work, it requires a lot of discipline, it definitely requires a lot of control and restraint. So a message for young players and also for coaches that are teaching and working with young players when you're thinking about defending is try to shift your focus away from just trying to win the ball at all costs and shift your focus a little bit more towards getting in the way of your opponent, preventing them from going forward, and showing some control and restraint. So that's it for this week's edition of the Soccer Fitness Goals video blog. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel on YouTube. And until next time, keep reaching your soccer fitness goals.